Questions about a killer, a man sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole, but allowed to have unsupervised family visits.
She walked in through those prison gates with a visitor's pass and never made it back out.
What? Stop this madness.
My name is Regina Connell. Welcome to West Virginia Wire. You guys, let's get some answers to all the questions that I know everyone is thinking. I'm pretty sure. All right, let's jump into the tragic story of the Stephanie Dowles case. Thanks for joining. Stephanie Dowles thought it was just another visit, another day showing love, showing support, maybe even showing some hope. But what happened next would change everything. This wasn't just a tragic accident. It wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was a fatal twist in a love story behind bars. Or can you even call it a true love story? I'm not sure.
And one of those visits, his wife ends up dead.
Your reporter Madison Keevy has the woman's family's plea to the prison make changes and give them answers.
Loved her grandchildren more than anything.
Yeah.
And that's what hurts the most, is because we got some that's about 3 years old. They don't know, what's going on. It's hard to explain that to them.
Stephanie Brinson wore many hats: grandmother, mom, a volunteer who gave back to her community.
It really hurt. She was a very loving person to a fault. She didn't care what your past was. She saw the good in everybody.
Stephanie died during an overnight family visit at Mule Creek State Prison. She was there visiting her husband, David Brinson. According to the Amador County Sheriff's and CDCR, at some point in the middle of the night, during their November visit, Brinson called the prison staff to say Stephanie passed out. 2 weeks later, her family was told something seemed suspicious about the case.
Kind of suspected it was something weird going on because she was healthy.
Her children's fears realized. The Amador County coroner ruled it a homicide. Stephanie was strangled.
It's a very frustrating role because we know it was just him and her in the room, nobody else. No supervision, no phones. They take her phone, they take all her belongings. So what hope does she have to, her life is in his hands.
So I'd just like to kind of piggyback on what he's saying. I'll give my commentary, what I feel, how I feel about the conjugal visit. I would say, what's the privilege? It's a high privilege, right? And it's only offered in state prisons. I will give you that nugget of information. So what this gentleman is saying is, yes, it is logical that they would take her cell phones and all of that, but where was the correctional officer? Like, how much of this makes any sense to you guys? You let me know in the comment section. Do you know anyone who is involved in a long-term relationship with someone who is in prison for serving a long sentence? All right, guys, let me know what you think, and let's continue on.
At that point,
her children want answers. Why an inmate with a violent history was allowed to have unsupervised visits at all? We took those questions to CDCR. They say protocol is that visits are determined by conduct while incarcerated, not convictions, unless an inmate has suspended privileges due to disciplinary actions, are on death row, or are convicted for sex offenses.
We just want answers. What could be done, not even just for the sake of my mom, but for the future, for somebody else's mom, somebody else's wife.
Trying to make a change. There are no charges for Stephanie's death, and Brinson has not been named as a suspect. He has been moved, however, to a facility in Stockton.
All right, guys, so that's just the first clip, a little clip giving you some backstory. So that's when the story originally dropped. So now we're going to go to the news article that I came across a few days ago, and I've just now gotten a chance to put this together. And I did want to honor Miss Stephanie Dowell's life, and we want to celebrate her life. And I'm with her children. There's a lot of unanswered questions here, and they definitely need to be addressed. With the current administration that's in the state of California right now, I'm not sure who the mayor is or any of that. Some definite reform needs to be happening in the state of California. And this is a good time to mention that they're saying that it's okay to have men and women's prisons and all of that. So now this has happened. What will happen next? Let's find out. I hope we don't find out. Well, let's dig into Stephanie's story just a little bit more, guys. All right, guys, we're going to dig into this article here. Let me bring it up here on the screen for you. As soon as it comes in, here we go. All right, so I'm just going to talk behind it for you as soon as I trash these ads here. All right, so woman killed during conjugal visit with convicted California murderer, officials say. So this story was posted March 21st, and the author is Josh Dubose. All right, guys, here we go. Let me get this bigger for you guys so you can see it nice and large and up here for you. Hillbilly, West Virginia, holler mama style. All right, guys, a notorious killer serving life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder of 4 men in Los Angeles County reportedly strangled his wife to death during a conjugal visit late last year. Oh, wow. It was, man, why hasn't this story made, well, I guess the last administration, they wouldn't want this to be common knowledge. David Brinson had been serving 4 consecutive life sentences, most recently at Mule Creek State Prison in Lone in North California's Amador County, where he is also accused of killing his wife. So you guys, I guess my only question would be is, if there are going to be conjugal visits allowed in prison, I would think that it should only be allowed in a minimum security facility. And if this guy's serving 4 life sentences, how could he ever possibly make it to a minimum security prison? I'm not sure what the laws are, the prison laws and all of that. The Department of Corrections, whatever they call it now, I think it's public safety in some states. Anyway, it is worth checking out, you guys. So, I mean, what's the use of getting them off the street, putting them behind bars when the state is just going to allow this to happen on top of everything else? Those are just some questions I have. What about you guys? All right, let's continue on. So this is just look at the guy. And I'm sure he told her a bundle of lies and all of that. Bless that woman. All right, you guys, conjugal visits, also referred to as, quote, family visits. And let me give you all the air quotes. You got to see this. Family visits. It's a day to get contraband in. All right, let me stop. All right, let's keep going, guys. Sorry about that. All right, so we are carrying on. So, conjugal visits, also referred to as, quote, family visits, are held in a private apartment-like facility on prison grounds. According to the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation's website, the visits are restricted to immediate family members, including legal spouses, parents, and children, and last around 30 to 40 hours. So, wow, they get to stay a whole week. Dadgum. Isn't that something? All right, let's carry on with this article, guys. So officials with the CDCR said that around 2 a.m. on November the 13th, 2024, of course they wouldn't want that to come out in an election year. Oh, no. Officials with the CDCR said that around 2 a.m. on November 13th, 2024, Brinson told prison officers that his wife, 62-year-old Stephanie Brinson, had passed out. The Los Angeles Times reported, and I did see that article. Prison staff attempted life-saving measures, but the 62-year-old woman was declared dead just before 3 a.m. According to reporting from The Independent, the county's coroner confirmed some 4 months after her death that Stephanie Brinson was strangled to death? 4 months. 4 months. Todd Reeby, Amador County District Attorney, confirmed to the LA Times that he's awaiting the prison's full report before filing charges. Really? You're going to let the prison investigate this? Oh, stop this madness. In fact, this would be a good time to play this right here. If I have it.
What? Stop this madness.
And let me give you another one. So it took the coroner 4 months to release it.
What? Stop this madness.
Or confirm it. And to my understanding, what I'm reading so far, y'all, I mean, they're letting the prison do their own investigation.
What? Stop this madness.
I'm not sure about this. Let's keep going, you guys. All right. So let's see. At his trial, witnesses testified that Brinson believed the former tavern owner. Oh, wait, hold on. Brinson was sentenced to prison in 1994 for the June 1990 murders of 4 men in Los Angeles, including retired tavern owner Robert Marks, age 59, and that's a young age. At his trial, witnesses testified that Brinson believed the former tavern owner was a well-connected cocaine dealer when he showed up at Mark's garage apartment with a gun and 2 accomplices, hoping to rob Marks for drugs and money. The LA Times reported at the end of the 1994 trial, so they were trying to roll the man. Witnesses testified that Brinson, after searching the apartment and finding only a scant amount of marijuana, shot Marks and 3 other men, Gene McCullers, 28, Celerino Likas, 33, and William Terry, 27, who had gathered at the apartment to watch a basketball game. And may they all rest in peace. We will celebrate their lives as well. This is horrible, you guys. Sensitive material. Disclaimer, warning, warning, warning. This is for educational, informational, and this is definitely not for entertainment purposes. I could tell you that. Not this today. They were all shot execution style as they laid face down on the floor of the bedroom. Brinson, now 54, has since been transferred to the California Healthcare Facility in Stockton, a state prison for incarcerated patients with long-term medical or acute health needs. So I suppose that my only question would be is what acute health needs does he have? I wonder if he wants to identify as a woman. Not sure about this, guys. Hang tight. Let's jump into the last newsreel. Guys, let me know what you think about this. You guys, if I've captivated you and kept your attention this long, you guys, hopefully we've earned your subscription. Stay a little while longer. And don't forget to check out our new channel, Bobina's Book Nook. So don't worry, I'm going to be updating that soon, getting more content out for you guys. Check out our playlist in the meantime. So let's jump back in.
I actually would have sworn that I had seen every kind of murder you could imagine. Name a location, a victim, a motive, a suspect, a weapon. I've covered 10 of them. But never a woman killed on a conjugal visit to a husband. A husband who's serving 4 life sentences for murder. That one is a first, for me, anyway. Still, if any inmate would strangle a loving and trusting and clearly devoted spouse, David Brinson is a pretty likely candidate. Back in 1990, Brinson stormed into a Los Angeles apartment aiming to rob a retired tavern owner who he thought was a drug dealer. But alas, there were no...
And I just want to give a disclaimer, you
No
guys.
drugs.
This is highly sensitive information material. So if you are a faint of heart, please do not... I'd go ahead and shut it down now. Like I said, this is very sensitive material. So let's jump back in.
There were no big wads of cash, just 4 men sitting there watching a basketball game. So David Brinson made a plan. He forced all 4 of those men to the floor and he shot them one by one in the backs of their heads, also known as execution style. David Brinson was convicted of that, and he was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms with no possibility of parole. And at some point, while David Brinson was marking off those long days at the Mule Creek State Prison in California, he connected with Stephanie Dowles on the outside. Stephanie was known to her family as Stevie, and she was a successful salon owner, a mother of 2, and a grandmother of 6. Stevie believed that she was helping inmate Brinson find redemption, thereby making him a better man, and soon she married him. Not long after that, the state of California allowed her to be alone with him during something commonly known as the conjugal visit. Nowadays, there are only 4 states that allow conjugal visits. Bet you didn't know that. California is one of them. Inmates with good behavior can earn what are called family visits that take place in apartment-like facilities on the prison grounds. And those visits can last up to 40 hours.
So I do want to make a correction. So 40 hours would be a couple of days. 48 hours is 2 days. I didn't say a week. I was thinking of a work week. You guys, so forgive me for that. So my first statement would be, is this a minimum security facility? I don't think any type of visitation should be allowed in a maximum security facility. So that would be the first question that I would probably ask. But let's continue with the story.
That also surprised me. Stevie and David, they were on a conjugal visit last November 13th when David picked up the phone and told the officers that his wife had passed out. The paramedics tried to revive her, but less than an hour later, Stevie was dead. For the next 4 months, her family was led to believe that Stevie died of natural causes. But then the coroner determined something else. Coroner determined that Stevie was strangled, apparently by the man she married and conjugally visited at the prison. While Stevie's last visit on November 13th seemed to be the final chapter for her, we are now learning some new details. David Brinson had apparently engaged in several conjugal visits with Stevie, including one in which her 3-year-old grandson was present. Let that sink in for a hot minute. He's a multiple murderer with a wife and...
Okay, you guys, I'm going to play that back one more time to be sure that I heard that correctly. And she did say, let it sink in. And the best way I know to let something sink in is let's listen to it again, right? So let's jump on over and do that right now. On a conjugal visit, why would a child be present on a conjugal visit?
3-year-old grandson was present. Let that sink in for a hot minute. He's a multiple murderer with a wife and grandson on the premises. We've also learned that Brinson attempted to take his own life back in July and failed, and yet was still allowed his visits with Stevie afterwards. As of yet, no charges additional.
So did they think the child was a pet? I mean, they do have animal programs. This person is an animal. I don't even know that I can classify this person as a person. It does get difficult to distinguish the demon from the vessel. This is hard to get through, you guys. Let's power through.
I should say, have been filed against Brinson. DA says he's still waiting for a full report from the prison. But Stevie's family is heartbroken. They want justice, not to mention answers. They want answers. Why are murderers with multiple victims being allowed these family visits? Why did it take 4 months to classify Stevie's death as a homicide? And how many more times will prison officials let this kind of thing happen? Because I hope you have a drink, because this story is about to take a turn sideways. Stevie was not the only woman killed on a conjugal visit at the Mule Creek State Prison. Also last year, on July 1st, Tanya Thomas was allegedly killed by her domestic partner during her visit to the prison. The partner...
Okay, first clarification I need is, what is a domestic partner? So, I mean, Do they allow same-sex conjugal visits? I guess so. This is California. I'm not sure, you guys. So this is a lot to process. I didn't know all of this information. Like I said, I like to keep it short, so I'm probably going to do a part 2 on this one. But let's continue on just to hear a few more words because I have a lot of closing statements on this one.
Of hers, Anthony Curry, is a convicted carjacker and attempted murderer, and his case just went to the DA in December. I'm joined now by Stevie Dell's daughter, Natalie Jimenez. Natalie, thank you so much for being.
All right, you guys, and we will cover all of that on another segment. If you guys want me to take a deeper dive into it, I'd be more than happy to do that. And simply for the fact I am completely shocked, I mean, picking my jaw up off the floor, that this was not the only instance at the same prison. Right. And it's highly disturbing the shenanigans they're allowing to go. And these are prisoners. Stop this madness. Just stop this madness. You guys, I'm going to leave this off on a cliffhanger. You guys, let me know what you want to hear. What do you think can be done about it? And, you know, let me just make my closing statements. Okay, so I lied, you guys. I'm probably going to edit this out, but that's okay. I think we need to take this a step further because they're actually going to speak to someone who is the director of jail systems. And let's see what this gentleman has to say.
Well, I'm joined now by Leonard Vare. He is the former director of the Napa County Jail System and a former prison warden with 28 years of inmate management experience. He's also the author of Elephant Keepers, Reflections of a Prison Warden. Thank you, Leonard, for being here. I wanted to get your reaction to the fact pattern that I just laid out in the interview I just conducted. Tell me your thoughts about this.
So thanks for having me. And yeah, it's a real troubling situation at this facility. It's highly irregular that they have conjugal visits. It's not very common. I think I heard you say that he was suicidal. That should have been a big red flag. And just that alone, they should have not allowed him to have those kinds of visits.
You know, I keep coming back to the images that we see when we journalists go in to interview inmates. They're handcuffed and they are frequently shackled at the ankles. And that is policy. That isn't because they particularly fear that person at that moment. It is just.
All right. So again, you know, is this a maximum? Is it considered maximum security, minimum security? Do they even make that Do they even make that distinguishment in California? I'm unsure. What do you guys think? What do you know? Let me know. I'm very familiar with the North Carolina prison systems. You guys, we could talk about that. I don't think that kind of shenanigans goes on in the North Carolina state prisons. They have enough troubles of their own, but thank the Lord it's not one of those. I will say, though, I do know a girl. I don't want to say her name because she's working on her map right now, and I'll tell you guys what that means another time in the state of North Carolina. But she was actually in North Carolina, did allow a transgender person to go into the facility in Troy in North Carolina. And she raised a big stink about it and she suffered because of it. And thankfully now she's in minimum security. She's able to get her map and move forward. And I had offered to help out in any way possible. That was under the Biden administration. Well, now it's a new day, a new order. And this ridiculousness, this foolery is going to stop. It's ridiculous. So let's keep going, guys.
Well, I can tell you that the California prison system is generally one of the more violent prisons or prison systems in the country. There's always murders. And if you just look at this particular facility, just in the last 2 years, there's been attempted murders on corrections officers. There's been murders against other inmates. This is a facility where there is a lot of violence. Now, you consider that kind of an environment, that's what these people are dealing with daily. and then you take one of those people and put him in this kind of a situation, you are not looking for good outcomes. It's a prayer and wishful thinking that I believe they've been able to keep these kinds of incidents to a low degree. But now, as you said, there was one that occurred just a few months before this incident.
All right, guys, let's just recap a little bit what we just heard. I did not know the story in depth like that. I had read the article. Nothing was mentioned in the article. And there's a ton of other articles out there. It's just usually the same author or the same publication. So, we know that this was not the first fatality at an inmate's hand at this same prison in California. What are they doing there? So I think all federal aid should be cut off to California and local Californians. I'm sorry about this. I don't know what to say about your state. West Virginia is not perfect. I will say that. This right here, this is out of control. This is completely out of control. So I guess the questions that we could wrap up with would be, why are conjugal visits allowed for inmates serving life sentences, and especially for multiple murders? Should that even be an option? I'm just in disbelief. And let's talk about Stephanie Dowles for a moment. She left behind a beautiful family. It sounds like, I just wonder, why isn't the prison doing more to discourage these kinds of relationships? And obviously it doesn't make the inmates more peaceful or more obedient or, tend to not be as violent. It seems to me that they're just ushering in new victims for them. And ladies, why? What could that man offer you? And it is a two-way street. And someone locked behind bars, multiple murders, if you didn't know them before it happened, you weren't married before it happened, I'm not sure it's a path that you should consider taking, especially when we have family. It's not just us that we have to consider. All right, guys, I think that's about all I got. What might have led her to fall in love and marry a convicted murderer? And, I've heard these cases, not just in women's cases, but in men's as well. The emotional vulnerability, it sounds like she had support from her family. So what could have caused her to feel like she needed to find that relationship? Was she ministering? And I'll leave off with this. Ladies, we as followers of the way of Yeshua ben Joseph have absolutely no business ministering in a male prison. There's no ifs, ands, buts, sideways about it. Men should be ministering to men.
That's how standard this thing is. So
that's my friend Wise. Hold on. He pops up automatically. So that's Wise with a Righteous Perspective. I actually have the honor of being able to moderate in his community. He's fantastic. You guys, please go check him out. So I guess that's my cue to wrap this up and get it all done and put together for you guys. You guys, please let me know what you think in the comment section. All of our information is public. Reach out to us. We are looking to make a change in West Virginia, and a positive one, mostly to bring people together. You guys, I want to do a huge shout out to Freely Social. If you haven't considered that platform, I highly recommend it. I'll put all the information at the end of the video and link it in my bio. So you guys, Freely Social is an amazing platform. You can find me on all platforms. I thank you for watching. My name again is Regina Connell. This is West Virginia Wire, and we do have your family lifted up. I am so sorry this has happened, and maybe we should consider all of these things. All right. Thanks, guys. See you on the flip flop.
Rise and shine. It's a brand new day. Got the world on my mind. Ain't no time to play. Chasing dreams, running fast, feeling no delay. We're the watchdogs, always watching what they say. Eyes wide open, we're taking what's ours. Breaking through the silence, aiming for the stars.